What if I told you that some of the most powerful anti-aging compounds on Earth aren't locked inside pharmaceutical labs or hidden behind expensive prescriptions, but growing wild in fields, forests, and even your own backyard? Most people don't know this, but while we're all chasing the latest serums, injections, and miracle creams, entire civilizations thrived on plants that kept their skin smooth, their joints flexible, and their minds sharp well into old age. These weren't folktales. These were systems of medicine practiced for thousands of years, backed by real results, and now, increasingly, confirmed by peer-reviewed science. Stick around because number 17 on this list is a plant the ancient Egyptians literally called the plant of immortality. They valued it so highly they buried it alongside their pharaohs. And number 20 is a root so powerful that researchers have found it can actually influence the length of your telomeres, the very biological clock ticking inside every cell of your body. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we post new videos every week that reveal the forgotten natural wisdom the modern world overlooked. And once you see what these plants can do, you'll never look at your garden the same way again. So, let's get into it. Here are 20 immortal plants that reverse aging instantly, ranked from remarkable to absolutely miraculous. Number 1. Calendula, the war flower. On the battlefields of the American Civil War, field surgeons reached for one thing before almost anything else to treat open wounds: the bright orange petals of the common marigold. Calendula had been used across Europe for centuries as a battlefield dressing, and soldiers called it the war flower because it was the difference between a wound that healed clean and one that festered. The plant's scientific name is Calendula officinalis, and that word officinalis tells you something important. It means it was officially recognized as medicinal. Modern science has caught up in a big way. Research confirms that calendula is rich in triterpenoids and flavonoids, compounds that stimulate collagen production and accelerate tissue regeneration. A study published in the Journal of Clinical and Diagnostic Research found that calendula extract significantly improved wound healing time and skin hydration compared to controls. Here's how it was used. Traditional herbalists made calendula oil infusions for burns, rashes, and cracked skin. They brewed it into teas for internal inflammation and packed fresh petals directly into wounds. It was a first aid kit in a flower. It fell out of favor because it was too common. It grew everywhere. You couldn't patent a wildflower, and pharmaceutical companies had no interest in promoting something anyone could grow in a window box. Think of it as the quiet medic on the battlefield of your skin, always ready, always effective, always overlooked. Number 2, rosemary, the memory keeper. In ancient Greece, students wove rosemary sprigs into their hair before examinations. Shakespeare wrote about it. Ophelia says, "There's rosemary, that's for remembrance." This wasn't poetry for poetry's sake. The Greeks and Romans genuinely believed this fragrant herb sharpened the mind and preserved memory, and they were right. Rosmarinus officinalis, now reclassified as Salvia rosmarinus, contains a compound called carnosic acid that has demonstrated remarkable neuroprotective properties. Research published in the journal Neurochemical Research showed that carnosic acid activates a signaling pathway in the brain that protects neurons from oxidative stress, one of the primary drivers of cognitive aging. Another compound, rosmarinic acid, functions as a potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Traditional use included burning rosemary in sick rooms to purify the air, brewing it into tonics for headaches and poor circulation, and infusing it into oils for joint pain. In the Middle Ages, it was a core ingredient in Hungary water, one of the first alcohol-based perfumes, which Queen Elizabeth of Hungary reportedly used to maintain her youthful appearance into her 70s. Rosemary lost its status because aromatherapy became associated with luxury spas rather than real medicine. Think of it as the librarian of your neural pathways, quietly cataloging and protecting every memory you've ever made. Number 3, horsetail, the living fossil. This plant has been growing on Earth for over 300 million years. It predates the dinosaurs. Horsetail, Equisetum arvense, is one of the oldest plant species still alive, and there's a reason it has survived every mass extinction event this planet has thrown at it. Horsetail is the richest botanical source of bioavailable silica on Earth. Silica is a trace mineral essential for collagen synthesis, and collagen is the structural protein that keeps your skin firm, your hair thick, and your nails strong. A study in the Archives of Dermatological Research found that silica supplementation significantly improved skin elasticity and reduced the depth of facial wrinkles over a period of 20 weeks. Here's how it was used. Roman physicians prescribed horsetail tea for kidney and bladder conditions. In folk medicine throughout Europe, it was brewed as a rinse for thinning hair and brittle nails. Farmers even used it as a natural scouring pad because of its high mineral content. It was forgotten because silica wasn't considered a glamorous nutrient. It doesn't have the marketing appeal of vitamin C or retinol. Think of it as the ancient architect of your body's scaffolding, reinforcing the very framework that keeps you looking young. Number 4, red clover, the pasture secret. Farmers have walked past this plant for generations without realizing they were stepping over one of nature's most potent sources of phytoestrogens. Red clover, Trifolium pratense, is a humble meadow flower with an extraordinary secret. It contains high concentrations of isoflavones, specifically genistein and digoxin, which mimic estrogen in the body. As estrogen levels decline with age, skin thins, bones weaken, and collagen degrades faster. Research published in the journal Maturitas found that red clover isoflavone supplementation significantly improved skin aging parameters including moisture, texture, and overall appearance in postmenopausal women. Traditional use included brewing the flower heads into tea for respiratory conditions, using it as a blood purifier, and applying it topically for eczema and psoriasis. In many European folk traditions, red clover was considered a women's herb, used to ease the transition through menopause long before hormone replacement therapy existed. It was sidelined because synthetic hormone therapies became the standard, and no one could profit from a flower that grows in every pasture. Think of it as nature's gentle hormone balancer, quietly compensating for what time takes away. Number 5, Schisandra berry, the 5-flavor fruit. In traditional Chinese medicine, very few plants earn the distinction of being classified as a substance that does everything. Schisandra chinensis is one of them. It's called the 5-flavor fruit because it simultaneously hits sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and pungent on your palate. And in Chinese medicine, that means it touches all 5 organ systems. Research has revealed that Schisandra contains a family of compounds called lignans, particularly Schisandrin B, which has demonstrated potent hepatoprotective and antioxidant effects. A study in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine showed that Schisandrin B protected mitochondria from oxidative damage, essentially protecting the energy factories inside your cells from the wear and tear of aging. Here's how it was used. Chinese emperors and their courts consumed Schisandra to enhance vitality, improve skin luminosity, and sharpen mental focus. It was a standard prescription for fatigue, night sweats, and what classical texts described as wasting and thirsting conditions. Hunters in Siberia carried dried Schisandra berries on long expeditions for endurance. It remained obscure in the West because traditional Chinese medicine was dismissed by Western institutions for most of the 20th century. Think of it as a master key that opens 5 doors at once, each one leading to a different system in your body that needs protection. Number 6, comfrey, the bone knitter. The Old English name for comfrey was knit bone, and that name alone tells you what people knew about it for centuries. If you broke a bone, if you tore a ligament, if your joints ached, comfrey was what you reached for. Symphytum officinale contains a compound called allantoin, which accelerates cell proliferation and tissue repair at a remarkable rate. A clinical study published in Phytomedicine demonstrated that a topical comfrey extract reduced pain and improved mobility in patients with osteoarthritis of the knee more effectively than a placebo, with results comparable to some pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory gels. Traditional use included making poultices from the leaves and roots for sprains, fractures, and bruises. Midwives used comfrey baths after childbirth to speed healing. Gardeners applied it as a fertilizer because the same growth-promoting properties that heal tissue also supercharge soil. Comfrey fell out of favor because certain alkaloids in the root, called pyrrolizidine alkaloids, raised safety concerns for internal use. The entire plant was painted with the same brush, and its extraordinary topical benefits were thrown out alongside legitimate caution about ingestion. Think of it as the construction crew your body calls in for emergency repairs, fast, efficient, and ready to rebuild. Number 7, amla, the ancient superfruit. In Ayurvedic medicine, amla is considered the single most important fruit for human health. That's not an exaggeration. Texts dating back 3,000 years place it at the center of a category of medicines called rasayana, which translates roughly to the path of rejuvenation. Philanthus emblica, the Indian gooseberry, contains one of the highest concentrations of natural vitamin C of any fruit on earth, roughly 20 times the amount found in an orange. But unlike synthetic ascorbic acid, the vitamin C in amla is bound to tannins and other polyphenols that make it remarkably stable and bioavailable. Research published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that amla supplementation significantly reduced markers of oxidative stress and improved lipid profiles in overweight adults. Here's how it was used. Amla was eaten fresh, dried, pickled, and powdered. It was mixed into hair oils to prevent graying. It was blended into face masks for skin brightening. Ayurvedic practitioners prescribed it for everything from digestive complaints to failing eyesight. It was forgotten by the Western world because Ayurveda was classified as alternative medicine, a polite way of dismissing thousands of years of clinical observation. Think of it as the vitamin C that your synthetic supplement wishes it could be. Number 8. Sea buckthorn, the survivor's berry. High in the Himalayas at altitudes where almost nothing else survives, a thorny shrub produces clusters of bright orange berries that contain a nutrient profile so dense it borders on absurd. Sea buckthorn, Hippophi rhamnoides, has been called the most nutritionally complete plant on the planet. It is one of the only plant sources of omega-7 fatty acids, specifically palmitoleic acid, which plays a critical role in skin regeneration, mucous membrane repair, and cellular signaling. A clinical trial published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that sea buckthorn oil supplementation improved skin elasticity and hydration in as little as 8 weeks. Traditional use included Tibetan monks applying the oil to skin burned by high-altitude sun exposure, and Mongolian horsemen feeding the berries to their horses to improve coat quality. In Russian folk medicine, it was prescribed for gastrointestinal ulcers and radiation damage. Sea buckthorn remained obscure because it grows in extreme environments and is notoriously difficult to harvest due to its dense thorns. Commercial agriculture couldn't scale it cheaply. Think of it as the ultimate survivor, a plant that thrives where nothing else can, and passes that resilience directly to your cells. Number 9. Rhodiola rosa, the Arctic root. Viking warriors chewed on this root before battle. Siberian villagers brewed it into tea to survive winters that lasted 8 months. Soviet-era scientists studied it in classified military research programs. Rhodiola rosa has a resume that reads like an action movie, and the science behind it is just as dramatic. Rhodiola is classified as an adaptogen, meaning it helps your body resist physical, chemical, and biological stressors. Its key compounds, rosavins and salidroside, have been shown in numerous studies to reduce cortisol levels, increase cellular energy production, and protect against oxidative damage. A study published in Planta Medica found that rhodiola supplementation significantly reduced mental fatigue and improved cognitive function under stress conditions. Here's how it was used. Traditional Siberians prepared rhodiola as a decoction for exhaustion, altitude sickness, and what they called winter sadness. Scandinavian folk medicine employed it for headaches, hernias, and to boost physical stamina during long fishing voyages. It stayed hidden because the most significant research was conducted behind the Iron Curtain and wasn't translated into English for decades. Think of it as the drill sergeant of your stress response system, training every cell to handle whatever life throws at you. Number 10. Gynostemma, the immortality herb. In southern China's Guizhou province, researchers noticed something that stopped them in their tracks. The region had a disproportionately high number of centenarians, people living past 100 in remarkable health. When they investigated their diets, one common thread kept appearing: a daily tea brewed from a wild vine called jiaogulan. Gynostemma pentaphyllum contains compounds called gypenosides that are structurally similar to the ginsenosides found in ginseng, but in far greater variety. Research published in the journal Aging found that Gynostemma activates AMPK, an enzyme sometimes called the metabolic master switch, which regulates cellular energy balance and has been directly linked to longevity pathways in multiple organisms. Additional studies have shown that gypenosides possess antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and cholesterol-lowering properties. Here's how it was used. Local populations brewed Gynostemma leaves as a daily tea, not as medicine, but simply as their preferred beverage. It was also dried and powdered into food. They didn't think of it as a longevity supplement. They just drank it because it tasted good, and they happened to live longer than almost anyone else. It was overlooked because it grows in a remote region and has no equivalent in Western herbal traditions. Ginseng got the spotlight while its southern cousin stayed anonymous. Think of it as the quiet centenarian who never asked for attention but outlived everyone in the room. Now, if you're finding this valuable and you're starting to realize just how much ancient botanical wisdom has been hiding in plain sight, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps this video reach other people who deserve to know about these plants and what they can do for their health. And if you haven't subscribed to The Garden Path yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community of empowered, knowledgeable people who believe that the answers to modern health problems might already be growing in the soil beneath our feet, and I'd love to have you as part of it. All right, let's keep going because we're just getting to the really amazing ones. Number 11, Gotu kola, the tiger grass. In Sri Lanka, an old proverb says, 2 leaves a day keeps old age away. The plant they're talking about is Gotu kola, and there's a reason it's also called tiger grass. Legend holds that wounded tigers in the jungles of Southeast Asia would roll in patches of this creeping plant to heal their injuries. Whether or not tigers actually do this, the science behind the claim is remarkable. Centella asiatica contains triterpenoid compounds called asiaticoside, maidcasoside, and asiatic acid. These compounds have been clinically demonstrated to stimulate type 1 collagen synthesis, the most abundant collagen in human skin. A study published in the International Journal of Lower Extremity Wounds showed that centella extract significantly accelerated wound closure and improved the tensile strength of new tissue. Traditional use included consuming the leaves raw in salads in Southeast Asia, brewing them into memory-boosting teas in India, and applying crushed poultices to burns and scars throughout the tropical world. Ayurvedic texts classify it as a medhya rasayana, a rejuvenator of the mind. It was overshadowed because it looks like an ordinary weed. It creeps along the ground in unremarkable fashion, easy to step on and ignore. Think of it as the secret engineer underneath your skin, quietly rebuilding the collagen matrix that keeps you looking decades younger than you are. Number 12. Moringa, the miracle tree. When the World Health Organization needed a nutritional intervention for malnourished communities in West Africa, they turned to a tree that locals had been using for centuries. Moringa oleifera produces leaves that contain all 9 essential amino acids, a feat almost unheard of in the plant kingdom. Beyond its protein content, moringa is extraordinarily rich in quercetin and chlorogenic acid, 2 antioxidants that studies have shown reduce inflammation and regulate blood sugar. Research published in the journal Food and Chemical Toxicology found that moringa leaf extract exhibited significant anti-aging activity by reducing oxidative damage to cells and promoting the activity of natural antioxidant enzymes. Here's how it was used. In India, moringa leaves were cooked into curries and soups. In West Africa, the powdered leaves were given to nursing mothers to boost milk production. In the Philippines, the young pods were eaten like green beans and were called drumsticks. The seeds were even used to purify drinking water. It was ignored by the Western world because it grows in tropical climates and doesn't store or ship well. You can't put a fresh moringa leaf on a shelf for 6 months. Think of it as the entire multivitamin aisle compressed into a single green leaf. Number 13. Green tea, the monk's elixir. Buddhist monks in 8th century Japan noticed something. The monks who drank green tea during their long meditation sessions didn't just stay more alert, they aged more slowly. Their skin stayed smoother, their minds stayed sharper. This wasn't mythology. This was observation across generations. Camellia sinensis, specifically the unoxidized green tea preparation, contains the catechin epigallocatechin galat, commonly known as EGCG. This compound is one of the most extensively studied polyphenols in the world. A large-scale observational study published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology found that habitual green tea consumption was associated with a significantly lower risk of cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. At the cellular level, EGCG has been shown to activate autophagy, the body's process of cleaning out damaged cells and regenerating new ones. Traditional use went far beyond drinking. Matcha, the powdered ceremonial form, was whisked into a thick paste and consumed whole, meaning you ingested the entire leaf and all its compounds. Green tea was also used in poultices for eye inflammation and in baths for skin conditions. It never exactly disappeared, but its true anti-aging power was diluted by commercialization into sugary, bottled drinks that contain a fraction of the beneficial compounds. Think of it as the quiet monk in the corner who knows the secret to living well past 100, but will only share it if you sit down and pay attention. Number 14. Goji berry, the longevity fruit. In the mountains of northern China, a legend persists about a village where people routinely lived past 100. The village sat beside a well surrounded by goji berry vines, and as the berries ripened and fell into the water, the entire village drank their essence daily. Lycium barbarum is loaded with zeaxanthin, a carotenoid that protects the eyes from ultraviolet and blue light damage, one of the major drivers of visible aging around the eye area. Research published in the journal Optometry and Vision Science confirmed that regular goji berry consumption significantly increased macular pigment optical density, effectively creating a natural shield against light-induced aging. Additional studies have found that goji polysaccharides enhance immune function and protect skin fibroblasts from ultraviolet radiation damage. Here's how it was used. In traditional Chinese medicine, goji berries were eaten dried, brewed into teas, cooked into soups, and steeped in rice wine. They were prescribed for blurred vision, fatigue, and what traditional texts described as kidney yin deficiency, a concept that maps roughly onto the Western understanding of hormonal and adrenal decline. Goji berries were dismissed in the West as another overhyped superfood trend, which ironically obscured the genuine and substantial science behind them. Think of it as the sentinel guarding the most visible part of your aging face, your eyes from the inside out. Number 15. Hai Xiao Wu, the youth restorer. The legend behind this plant is extraordinary. A sickly, gray-haired old man named He discovered a wild vine in the mountains and began consuming its root. His hair turned black again. His energy returned. He fathered children late in life. The plant was named after him. He Shu Wu, which translates to Mr. He's black hair. Fallopian multiflora contains a compound called emodin and a unique stilbene glycoside known as 2354'-tetrahydroxystylbene 2-obeta-D glucoside, mercifully shortened to THSG. Research published in the journal Rejuvenation Research found that THSG extended the lifespan of the model organism C. elegans by activating the DAF16 pathway, a longevity-related signaling cascade. Other studies have shown that it promotes melanocyte activity, the cells responsible for hair pigmentation. Here's how it was used. The root was traditionally prepared by slicing it thin and cooking it slowly in black bean liquid for hours, a process believed to reduce its raw potency and make it safe for long-term consumption. It was prescribed for premature graying, lower back pain, insomnia, and declining vitality. He Shou Wu was kept out of Western markets partly because its preparation is complex, and partly because unprepared forms of the root carry hepatotoxicity concerns, which led to blanket regulatory caution. Think of it as the reset button for your biological clock, buried deep in a Chinese mountainside, waiting for someone patient enough to prepare it correctly. Number 16. Turmeric, the golden healer. 4,000 years ago, Ayurvedic physicians in India were using turmeric to treat inflammation, digestive disorders, and skin wounds. They called it the golden goddess, and it was used in virtually every healing formulation in the classical texts. It turns out they were sitting on one of the most powerful anti-aging compounds ever identified. Curcuma longa contains curcumin, a polyphenol that has been the subject of over 12,000 peer-reviewed studies. Research published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences found that curcumin modulates multiple molecular targets involved in aging, including NF-κB, the inflammatory master switch, and sirtuins, enzymes directly involved in cellular longevity. Clinical trials have demonstrated that curcumin supplementation reduces markers of systemic inflammation as effectively as some prescription anti-inflammatory drugs. Traditional use included mixing turmeric paste with warm milk, the original golden milk that is now trendy in Western cafes. It was applied to wounds as an antiseptic, mixed into face masks for skin brightening, and added to virtually every curry across South Asia. Turmeric was undervalued because it was classified as a cooking spice, not a medicine. When something costs pennies per pound and sits in every kitchen cupboard, it's hard to convince people it's also a clinical-grade anti-inflammatory. Think of it as the golden thread running through every system in your body, quietly extinguishing the fires of chronic inflammation that drive aging from the inside out. Number 17. Aloe vera, the plant of immortality. I told you to stick around for this one. Ancient Egyptian records describe aloe as the plant of immortality, and they weren't being poetic. When pharaohs were embalmed for their journey into the afterlife, aloe vera was one of the substances packed around their bodies. Cleopatra credited her legendary skin to daily applications of aloe gel. And when Alexander the Great conquered the island of Socotra, one of the strategic reasons cited by historians was to secure the island's vast aloe plantations for his army's medical supplies, a plant worth conquering an island for. Aloe barbadensis Miller contains over 75 active compounds, but the star player for anti-aging is aseminon, a polysaccharide that has been shown to stimulate macrophage activity and boost fibroblast function, the cells directly responsible for producing collagen and elastin. Research published in the journal Skin Pharmacology and Physiology found that oral aloe vera gel supplementation significantly improved facial wrinkle depth and skin elasticity in women over 40 after just 90 days. A separate study in the Annals of Dermatology confirmed that aloe sterols promote collagen and hyaluronic acid production in human dermal fibroblasts. Here's how it was used. Beyond Egyptian embalming, aloe was consumed as a juice for digestive healing across the Arabian Peninsula. Indian Ayurvedic practitioners called it Kumari, meaning young girl, because of its reputation for preserving youthful skin. In traditional Mexican medicine, the gel was applied to burns, and the inner leaf was eaten for stomach ulcers. Aloe vera didn't so much disappear as get diluted. The commercial aloe industry filled products with minimal concentrations of actual gel, surrounded by fillers and preservatives, until people stopped believing aloe was anything special. The real thing, straight from the leaf, remains one of the most comprehensively studied and validated anti-aging botanicals on the planet. Think of it as the pharaoh's final secret, a plant so valuable it was deemed worthy of accompanying kings into eternity. Number 18. Ashwagandha, the ancient equalizer. 3,000 years of Ayurvedic practice and ashwagandha was always there, always central, always prescribed when someone was aging too fast, burning out too quickly, or losing their resilience to stress. Withania somnifera means sleep-inducing in Latin, which hints at one of its primary benefits. But this plant does far more than help you sleep. Its key active compounds with onolides have been shown in a landmark study published in the Journal of the American Nutraceutical Association to significantly reduce cortisol levels and improve resistance to stress. Elevated cortisol is one of the most destructive accelerators of biological aging, degrading collagen, weakening bones, and shrinking brain volume. A separate study in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine found that ashwagandha root extract improved serum DHEAS levels, an important biomarker that declines with age. Here's how it was used. The root was dried, powdered, and mixed with warm milk and honey before bed. It was prescribed for emaciation, immune weakness, insomnia, and declining reproductive health. Warriors took it before battle, and scholars took it before examinations. Ashwagandha was dismissed in the West for the same reason most Ayurvedic herbs were: cultural bias. If it didn't come in a blister pack with a pharmaceutical logo, it wasn't taken seriously. Think of it as the thermostat of your stress response, quietly adjusting every hormone and neurotransmitter to keep you running at your biological prime. Number 19. Reishi, the mushroom of 10,000 years. For over 2,000 years in East Asia, the reishi mushroom was considered so rare and so powerful that it was reserved exclusively for emperors and their inner circles. Commoners who found one growing wild were legally required to surrender it to the royal court. It was depicted in imperial art, carved into palace doors, and woven into the mythology of immortal sages. Ganoderma lucidum contains a class of compounds called gonadoric acids, which are triterpenoids with demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antihistamine properties. But the compound that gets longevity researchers most excited is a polysaccharide called beta-glucan, which modulates the immune system with extraordinary precision. Research published in the journal Immunological Investigations found that reishi polysaccharides enhance natural killer cell activity, a critical component of immune surveillance that declines significantly with age. A study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology further demonstrated that reishi extract exhibited significant antioxidant activity and protected liver cells from damage. Here's how it was used. Because the fruiting body is woody and bitter, reishi was traditionally sliced thin and simmered for hours into a dark, potent tea. It was also dried and ground into powder for medicinal pastes. In Taoist alchemy, it was considered the herb of spiritual potency and was prescribed to calm the mind and extend life. Reishi was kept from Western awareness by a combination of cultural distance and its association with mysticism. Anything linked to Taoist immortality practices was written off as superstition. Think of it as the Emperor's shield, an ancient guardian of the immune system that was once too precious for ordinary people, and now is available to anyone willing to pay attention. And here we are at number 20, the one I saved for last because it represents everything we've talked about today. Number 20, Astragalus, the root of life. Every single plant we've discussed today shares one common thread. They protect, repair, and regenerate your body at the cellular level. But astragalus does something none of the others do quite as directly. It addresses the single most fundamental mechanism of biological aging, the shortening of your telomeres. Telomeres are the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes. Every time a cell divides, those caps get a little shorter. When they get too short, the cell can no longer divide properly. It becomes senescent. It stops functioning. It ages. This is the biological clock that governs everything: your skin, your organs, your brain, your lifespan. Astragalus membranaceus, known in Chinese medicine as huangqi, contains a compound called cycloastrogenol. This compound does something remarkable. It activates telomerase, the enzyme responsible for rebuilding and lengthening telomeres. A study published in the journal Rejuvenation Research found that a cycloastrogenol-based supplement increased telomere length in immune cells over a 12-month period. This isn't theoretical. This is measured, documented, peer-reviewed evidence that a plant compound can influence the most fundamental timer of human aging. But astragalus isn't just about telomeres. It has been a cornerstone of traditional Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years. Huangqi translates to yellow leader, reflecting both its golden-colored root and its status as a leading tonic herb. It was prescribed for fatigue, chronic illness, poor appetite, and frequent infection. Classical Chinese physicians used it in formulas designed to tonify the qi, which in modern terms means to restore systemic energy and immune resilience. Here's how it was used. The dried root was simmered into soups and broths, often alongside ginseng and goji berries. It was sliced into thin strips and added to congee. It was powdered and taken in capsules. In every case, it was used for long-term health maintenance, not acute treatment. It was the herb you took every day to stay young, not the herb you took when you were already sick. Astragalus was overlooked in the West because telomere science itself was still emerging. The Nobel Prize for Telomere Research wasn't awarded until 2009. The Western medical establishment didn't have a framework for understanding what this root was doing until the very mechanism it acted upon was finally mapped by modern science. And that's the story of this entire list. Every single one of these 20 plants was ahead of its time. Ancient civilizations understood, through centuries of observation and practice, what modern laboratories are only now confirming with microscopes and clinical trials. These plants weren't forgotten because they didn't work. They were forgotten because they couldn't be patented, packaged, and sold at a premium. Think of astragalus as the capstone on a pyramid of proof. At the base, you have the simple wound-healing power of calendula. In the middle, you have the collagen builders, the adaptogens, the antioxidants, and at the top, you have a root that reaches into the very DNA of your cells and tells the clock to slow down. That's not mythology, that's science. And it's been growing in the soil for thousands of years, waiting for us to pay attention. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Are you team ancient Ayurveda, team traditional Chinese medicine, or team European folk herbalism? Subscribe to The Garden Path and ring that bell so you never miss what's coming next. Because the garden has been talking for centuries, it's time we started listening.